And Malaysia is in a very interesting place, actually, in terms of its program. Just last year, it announced its Premier Visa program, which is also known as the PVIP. Now, it is modeled on similar initiatives in the regions, for example, in Thailand, which offers a 10-year resident visa for wealthy global citizens and highly skilled professionals. Also, Singapore too has a global investor program, which offers a similar route to foreign investors and families. So, why is Malaysia now having this Premier Visa program, and how does it compete with other programs in the region? To help us understand all of this in this episode, I have a special guest with us. His name is Kyan Yap. He's the CEO of MYPVIP. He's based in the capital, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Salman.
Thank you. So please tell our listeners about the investment immigration options in Malaysia and how it works.
Sure. The PVIP program, which is short for the Malaysia Premium Visa program, is an initiative launched by the Malaysian government in October of last year. So they announced it in Parliament that this was a program that is going to be going forward, and it passed through the budget and also voting in the government. So after which, the way they want to run the program is that they want to actually engage authorized agent to help promote the program. And my company, MYPVIP, is the first and currently the only authorized agent by the government at the moment. So we got our license from the government late December last year, and we started marketing the program in January. So the program is modeled after actually what other countries are offering in the region. But I think it takes it one step. It's like a hybrid program between Thailand and Singapore in a way, because it's not a PR like what the Singaporean government is offering, but it's also not like a long-term tourist visa like what Thai elite program is. Because the benefits of this program actually is very similar to a Malaysian PR, except the validity, it's 20 years plus a renewal of another 20 years.
Before we talk about the benefits of the program, I want to also understand the other options that are available in the country. So is the PVIP the only option available for foreign investors, or are there other options?
Yes, there's another option that has been running for over 20 years. It's called the Malaysia My Second Home program. I wouldn't really classify that as an investor program, because that program, the essence of it is actually targeted to retirees. So it's actually for people to use Malaysia as a retirement home or a second home when they want to, when they retire in that sense. And second option for them to live.
So there are two options. One is the Premier Visa program, which was launched last year, and the previous one is the Malaysia My Second Home, which has been around for, I think, 10 years or something, isn't it?
No, actually it has been around for 20 years, but it has went through quite a few different iterations, the program. Initially, it started off as a silver hair program, which is just targeted for retiree over the age of 60 years old. And then the next reincarnation of the program became more of a second home program. And recently, a lot of changes have been made to that program as well. Yeah.
What was the motivation last year? They already had this Malaysia My Second Home program there for many years. So then the government comes up with this. Why did they have to do that? What were they thinking? If you could explain to us a little bit.
I think the main motivation behind the program is that while the Malaysia My Second Home program, which is what we call MM2H, has been relatively successful, over the 20 years, they have attracted 46,000 successful applicants. But the cost of applying for the program is very low. The threshold previously was only, at the moment as well, is 5,000 ringgit, which is 1,500 US dollars. And previously, the program has a very low threshold of what we call financial requirement. The amount that the foreigner needs to bring into the country was very low. And on top of that, there's no other obligation to invest or buy property and so on. In the sense that the program did attract foreigners to come to Malaysia, but it did not give any direct benefit to the country or the government in that sense. And the program was also, I would say, abused as well, because the threshold was so low. A lot of foreigners, groups of foreigners, was using the program to enter Malaysia and then conducting businesses or multi-level marketing, seminars and so on, where they were not allowed to do so. So we had a lot of issues with that, and the government felt that the program was not doing what it was intending to do and attracted the wrong type of people. Hence, they increased the threshold of the program. They remodeled it after quite a lengthy period of consideration, and they engaged a couple of consultants on it. And on top of that, they launched the Premium Visa program, which is more targeted to high net worth individuals who have an intention to put in money into Malaysia.
If you could explain to us now the eligibility requirements for the Premium Visa program, what is the threshold now, and what kind of foreign investors is the government looking to attract?
The program is actually quite straightforward. The requirement from the government is a participation fee. The first thing, the participation fee is 2,000 Malaysian ringgit, which is equivalent to about $45,000. That is a one-off fee to the government to participate in this program. That fee will essentially get you the 20-year visa, right? And to renew the government for another 20 years, the government will charge half of that fee, which is $22,500. But this is for the main applicant. Dependent, which they are allowed to bring, their spouse, their children, their parents, and in-laws as well, and also a domestic helper if they want to. For each of the dependent, the fee is half of the main applicant, which is 22,500 for the first 20 years, and the additional 20 years is half of that. So this is the first requirement, financial requirement. The second financial requirement is actually to put in a deposit into Malaysia. This is in the form of a fixed deposit in a local authorized bank. So the applicant will have to put in $1 million ringgit, which is equivalent at the moment to about $225,000. This is tied to a fixed deposit account, which pays about 4-point-something% interest at the moment. And after the first year, the applicant can actually withdraw 50% of this for real estate purchase, for education, for medical expenses. And then the third thing that we will need from the applicant, of course, is a letter of good conduct to prove that they are not wanted or a criminal in their home country. And then they will also have to come into Malaysia one time at first before they get the visa to do a medical checkup to make sure that they're healthy, and at the same time get a local medical insurance coverage. Because this program does not actually have a physical stay requirement in Malaysia. So you can come and go as many times as you want within 20 years and stay as long as short as you want, or not stay in Malaysia at all.
How much time does it take to process the application? Does it take like 6 months to get an approval for the PVIP program? How long are your clients? What do you promise your clients? Like, how much time can you get them the visa?
Okay, this is not a promise that we come up with. It's actually part of the program that was announced by the government. The processing time of this program is 60 working days. So there's a definite answer that you get whether your application is approved or not within 60 working days. Yeah. And we actually have already gotten approval for our first applicant, and that was within 60 working days.
This is a residency visa. So this does not lead to citizenship, right?
Yes, correct.
So why is that? A lot of investors, when they invest so much amount of time in a particular country, they're also interested in nationality, if they can get it, because, you're putting in money and the time. So why didn't the government offer that?
I think the Malaysian government have never offered that, any program that could lead to a not even citizenship, but a PR. Even if you're married to a Malaysian, you will not automatically get citizenship or PR, and for that matter. So I have known people who have been married to a Malaysian for over 20 years and live in the country and still did not get a PR. So getting a PR or a citizenship in Malaysia is notoriously a very difficult process. And I think this might change in the future, maybe. But at the moment, the government is taking one step at a time. So this is PVIP program is the first step towards something more longer term. Because the program actually have the same benefits as a PR, because you can actually work, you can do business, you can be in an executive position in a company, you can study, you can invest, So it's very similar to a PR, but with a time limitation.
Is that the case also in other parts of in the region, in other countries, for example, in Thailand and Singapore? Is it also true that they too don't offer citizenship to applicants?
Well, I think the only country that I can think of in the Southeast Asian region that would offer a path to citizenship is Singapore. The Singapore program do offer a path to citizenship, but the program has a much higher threshold than the other programs available in the region. I think the starting point is that you have to invest 25 million Singapore dollars into a business, and the business have to turn over 200 million Sing dollars a year. So I think that is for the real elite and the upper end of the market.
You mentioned in the podcast earlier that the government didn't want to attract or certain kind of investors were before coming into the country from the Malaysia My Second Home program, and they want to now attract a different kind of investors. So what is the target audience of this program? Is it the Chinese investors, who traditionally come to the Southeast regions, or are they looking at American investors or from Europe?
I think the program is open to everyone. Who will find Malaysia a suitable place to live if they want to spend some time here, or they like Malaysia in that sense, or take the view of that Malaysia is a good country to invest in right now because we are a rapidly developing country with a quite stable political and economic environment. So, but I think from what I can see from the interest that we have gotten so far, we have seen a lot of North Asian interest, particularly from Taiwan and China and so on, because as you know, Malaysia is a multicultural country. We have a large population of Chinese living here as well. And language is not an issue because we speak multilingual in Malaysia. So I think that familiarity with the culture, with the food, with the language has attracted quite a lot of Chinese North Asians. But I think the program also is a bit different to other programs in the sense that because it's a long-term residency program, not a citizenship. So for a lot of the individuals from countries who does not allow dual citizenship, this is a very good option for them.
Are most of your clients coming from one particular country, or are you seeing many applicants from different regions? What are the trends you're looking and observing?
When we first started, I think I can share with you that our first client is actually from Taiwan. And subsequently, we've seen Taiwanese interest picked up very fast. I think a lot of the Taiwanese are a bit concerned with the geopolitical situation, and they would like to have a plan B, per se, that, somewhere that they can actually go to if something happens. And Malaysia is a very viable option based on what I mentioned earlier, with the culture, language, and food, and proximity as well to Taipei and Taiwan, as well, a 4-hour flight. And since then, we have also seen a lot of interest coming from Bangladesh, India as well. Because in Malaysia, we also have a large population, Indian population, and also food, culture, language, not an issue. And slowly at the moment, we're seeing a pickup from Europe and North America. I think, a lot of them are attracted by the low cost of living in Malaysia, but we have all the infrastructure here. Everything is world-class. You're spending a fraction of what you'll be spending.
Now let's also now talk about the options of investing in Malaysia. You mentioned in the podcast earlier that there's a fixed deposit option. Could you explain that a little bit? And also the other options, like, for example, can an investor also buy a property from that investment? How does it work? Like, and do what clients ask from you? Do they want to buy property there immediately, or how do you go about that?
So the fixed deposit requirement is actually a must that the applicant must do. So this is a requirement for the government before they actually issue you the visa. So you have to make sure that you have ₦1 million or equivalent in any currency placed in a bank here in Malaysia. I think the idea behind this was because they want to strengthen the banking system with deposits, and which allows the banks to then generate more loans, mortgages to the local clientele, and which help the economy. So this is a must. But as I mentioned, in the second year, they can take 50% of this amount out, whereas the remaining 50% have to be remaining in the fixed deposit account until they cancel the visa or upon expiry of the visa. But of course, a lot of these individuals who has this kind of investment to make have additional money to spend as well. So we do see a lot of them asking about property, because Malaysian property, especially in the capital, compared to the region, is relatively affordable. And the quality and the size that you can get, it's probably 1/3 of Singapore or half of Bangkok pricing wise.
Do they mostly go for then buying property then?
They do, but the buying of property is separate to that fixed deposit investment, because that has to happen first. Whereas the buying of the property is an additional. Actually, I also would like to add, besides property, the other interesting thing about Malaysia is that I think not many people know about this. We do have an offshore entity similar to the BVI and Cayman Islands called Labuan. So Labuan, it's Malaysia's answer to offshore banking. And a lot of our clients have actually been exploring shifting some of their wealth into Labuan and all their businesses into Labuan for tax reasons, tax benefits. And some of them have actually achieved zero taxation on some of their business and profits.
I also want to understand that if somebody wants to start a business in Malaysia and also gain residency, can they do that?
Yes, they can do that, because this, if once they get this PVIP visa, they're allowed to operate their own, start a business, operate. There's no requirement anymore, like restriction anymore for them. Yeah.
So, for example, a foreign entrepreneur, he wants to set up a company and a business. They can do that after they gain the visa. That's what you're saying, right?
Correct, yes. And this is actually a better pathway for them to do this, because, the government also offer some other programs that to attract foreign entrepreneurs and investors to come into Malaysia. But all those programs has strict requirements, in terms of investment amount, the number of people they have to hire, turnover, and selected industries only. Whereas with this visa, you can do any business and there's no restriction.
Now, I'm going to shift the topic a little bit and also talk about, the common misconceptions that people have about investment immigration in Malaysia. Now, I was doing some research and I saw a lot of, negative comments about the Malaysia My Second Home program. Some people didn't have good experiences, especially in the last few years. Yes. Now, in the background of what happened before, now, if somebody's doing their research, they don't know anything about Malaysia, they'll come across those comments and then they'll come to you. But how do you address those concerns?
I think one of the main negative feedback that a lot of people that were on the program has expressed is that they had issues coming back to Malaysia during COVID. And then on top of that, the program threshold has gone up. So I think people need to understand that program was an option for them to come and stay with. It's a long-term social visit program. not a residency program as per se, even though it's called Malaysia My Second Home. So the visa that they get from it is a social visit, long-term social visit pass, because they're not allowed to work, they're not allowed to do business in Malaysia, which is why when we had the lockdown during COVID, everyone who are on some sort of social visa pass was locked out of the country. So that was one of the issues. And secondly, as you know, the government increased the threshold of the program for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And that also kind of affected a lot of people who are on the program because they did not understand that the program is a 10-year program with a 5-year renewal process. So after 5 years, you have to resubmit your application to renew for the next 5 years. But the government has since then come out and said that whoever who's already on the program with the requirements from the previous program, that shall remain, and they won't be affected with the new requirements. So the new requirements is only at the moment for anyone new that's want to apply for the Malaysia My Second Home program.
You mentioned that you have a client from Taiwan. I'm interested in hearing more about the success stories that you have dealt with. So can you give us a profile of a typical candidate for the Premier Visa program who has been successful? Are they coming with their families? Are they solo investors? Just so that people can have an idea.
Sure. I think the majority of our applicants at the moment, business investors who are intending to start businesses in Malaysia, all already have some sort of business activity in Malaysia. They view this visa as a way for them to come and go from Malaysia without restriction. They can then take up executive position in their company that they're invested in or they're intending to start. So this is a very good advantage for them. Secondly, we also see a lot of families that are interested in this program, especially families with children, because they are looking at Malaysia as a place for the children to come and study, to do their education. Because comparatively, the school fees in Malaysia for like an international school is also very much cheaper than their home country or even countries around the region. So we're cheaper than Thailand, we're cheaper than Singapore. Yeah. So providing the same quality of education. And of course, on top of that, the housing costs and cost of living is also much lower here.
We're coming close to the end of our show, but I would also like to know the number of applicants that you think will increase in the future. So looking into the future, do you think more applicants will be coming in from, for example, Taiwan as, tensions rise in the region? Do you think more applicants will come from, from India, as you mentioned? What's your outlook for the future?
Actually, we think that, the program has been generating a lot of buzz around the region. I also think that with a lot of the programs around the world closing its doors or raising their threshold, as Portugal is closing the door, and there are some other programs that are also raising their threshold, like Singapore. This program will be quite attractive. I also see with China starting to open up more now, we will see a lot more Chinese investors that's interested, because traditionally, one of the biggest uptake of the Malaysia My Second Home program were the Chinese. But due to the lockdown and the closed door policy that China has in the last couple of years, we have not seen anyone come into Malaysia. But I think this might change with China now opening up. And of course, I think once now that we have established that the program is run